It's L. Timothy, Timothy, Whitmore, Whitmore.
And you are the commander of?
I'm the commander of Tidewater Chapter 191, Korean War Veterans Association.
How many members do you have?
38.
And I was told it was established in around 1986?
I can't say that for sure. I'm sorry, but I don't know. I've not been able to find our charter. I've been commander for 2 years and have looked everywhere, tried to get a new one, but haven't been able to get a new one yet. So,
So what do you do every time you meet? How often do you meet?
We meet once a month, the second Saturday morning of each month. We have breakfast, conduct our regular honors and ceremony, conduct business, and have fellowship.
I had a wonderful breakfast with you. You invited me to join, so
yes,
that was great.
I'm so glad you were able to do that.
So, would you please tell me the birthday and the birthplace?
I was born in Dayton, Ohio, on 15 November 1935.
And the school you went to?
I went to the elementary school in the East Elementary School in Greenville, Ohio. Mostly went to high school in Greenville, Ohio. I spent a good bit of my young life living with my grandparents in Ontario, Canada, southern Ontario, Canada. But I graduated from high school in Greenville and went immediately to Wittenberg College. It's now a university, but it was a college then. And
where was it?
In Springfield, Ohio.
What did you study?
My plan was to become a Lutheran minister. That didn't work out well. And so I graduated from high school on the 28th of May, started at Wittenberg.
What year?
1953. And started Wittenberg, and in December of 1953, I joined the military. Joined the Air Force.
53?
Yes, sir.
It was so you enlisted, right?
I enlisted, yes.
Where did you go to get the basic military training?
I did my basic military training at Lackland Air Force Base, and then did my basic medical training at Fort Sam Houston, Texas.
What do you mean by medical training?
I was a medic.
You were the medic.
Yeah, and so I did that training at Fort Sam Houston, and then immediately went to Korea.
Do you remember when you left for Korea?
March of 1954.
How did you go there? By plane or?
No, I went over on the USS Breckenridge. MSTS Breckenridge, yeah.
How long did it take to cross the Pacific Ocean?
20 plus days. I'm not. It seemed forever.
And you stopped by in Japan?
Yeah, we landed at Yokohama. Went to Fuchu, which was a repo depot, and from there we're flown to. I went to Korea, to K2 at Daegu.
How was Daegu when you arrived? The situation there.
Well, the armistice had been signed, and it still was pretty chaotic. I thought.
What do you mean by chaotic?
Well, we didn't have all the personnel we needed to have in the hospital, and some of the people that we had there were not well trained. I was not particularly well trained. and but we did the very best we could. We stayed busy enough. There were no active wounded coming in, but we were quite busy, and I was given jobs that I had no idea would be anything that I'd ever be involved with. I did ration breakdown, for instance, and had to inspect the food stuffs that came in, and some of it was incredible. I mean, stuff from World War II, canned pineapple juice was always, it would come in the big cans, and you'd squeeze it, and it would just squirt everywhere. They rusted through. And
Well, it was made during the World War II?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
So how old is this? Like 8 years old?
Well, or older. Some of them to 1942, 1943, canned goods. And of course, in that time, I don't remember any fresh meat. We occasionally got some fresh vegetables. No fresh eggs. Milk was powdered. Yeah, and we didn't have dining facilities per se. We had our mess kits, and you go through the line, and then when you're done eating, you went over. They had the big GI cans with heaters in it, and you'd wash them and hang them up and let them dry.
What kind of patient did you deal with? What are the most sort of common category of the patients?
For me, the most common thing I dealt with was venereal disease. When I got there, they asked if I had had any laboratory experience. I really hadn't, other than my brother had quite a chemistry set up at our house, and so I said, "Oh yeah, I've had some lab experience." And
Yeah, you have an experience.
And now all of a sudden I'm the lab technician, and I remember we used I had a TM 8-230, I think it was, which was a Army laboratory training manual, Winthrobes on bacteria, on hematology. I can't remember the name on bacteriology, but I mean, venereal disease is what I would. And I mean, I would see patients, and sometimes.
What did you do? That venereal disease, did you put the penicillin? Or
Yeah, mostly penicillin.
injection?
Penicillin injections, 600,000 units in the buttocks twice a day for 3 days. Usually cleared it. Not always, and sometimes I had to switch them to sulfamethoxazole or some such thing as that. But there was a lot, and the Air Force didn't treat those patients badly. The Army gave company punishment for venereal disease. So the Army folks did not want to come to their medics, so they would try to come to us. And some of them had sought treatment outside, and they came in with big abscesses on their buttocks, where they'd gotten shots of Jergens lotion or some sort of cream that did not cure gonorrhea. And it was. And we had several people who had cases that we just couldn't cure, just could not cure, and ended up sending them to FEMCOM hospital in Japan, and I don't think the treatment they got over there was what any of them ever thought they'd have to have.
Were you able to look how the Koreans were living at the time, civilian life?
That was
around Daegu?
my most vivid memories of Korea have to do with that. The refugees, the poverty, the sense of hopelessness and helplessness was I mean, just it really burned itself in my memory. These beautiful people who, through no fault of their own, had nothing. I mean, they lived in dwellings put together with cardboard boxes and canvas bags that had been opened up and down along the Naktong River and in places like that, and children, groups of children wandering. What a, it's just
What did you feel?
Oh God, I still feel it. It was. I mean, what could I do? I mean, what if anything could I do? And there was precious little. I mean, that I individually could do. I did do some stuff at the with orphanages, and I guess what the highlight of that was I got hooked up with a physician from Mission Hospital in Daegu, and as I said, I'd sort of lied my way into the job that I had, but I went several times up to a leprosarium that they ran, and did nasal scrapings for him to the progress of the disease, and that of all the places that I was at that time, that was the most joyous place I went. I mean, folks up there were seemingly happy. Of course, they didn't want to leave. They were we used streptomycin for treatment in those days, and they responded well, and so we arrested, but they did not want to go back because they wouldn't be accepted back in their society, and it was. But they were very content to be there.
Did you write back to your family?
I did, yeah. I wrote most every day. Now I don't have any of those things. My wife left after I'm not married to that lady anymore, and so most of the artifacts most of the things I brought back, and I brought back a flag that I treasured, and the brass pipe, stuff that some things like that, and they're all gone.
What was the most difficult times of your service, except the miserable aspect of the Korean civilians? What made you most difficult?
The most difficult?
Moment in your service in Korea.
Being away from my family. I had just gotten married. In fact, I got married while I was at Fort Sam Houston, just before I went, and so being away from then, my son was born while I was in Korea, and so I didn't. He was 5 months old before I ever met him, and that was difficult. My family of origin had pretty much broken up. I mean, it was, and that even played a part on my leaving school and coming in. My mother had, my brother had graduated from Wittenberg and had moved out to California to go to school out there, to seminary. And he had invited me to come out and live with him and his wife, and we live together and contribute to the common funds, and I'd go to undergraduate school, he'd go to seminary. It seemed like a good idea. My mother then decided that she was going to leave my father, and she was going to go to California as well. While I was one night at Wittenberg, the dean of the seminary where I was, the president of the Synod of Ohio, the Lutheran Synod of Ohio, and our local pastor came to see me at the school, and talked to me and said, "We think if you stay, your mother won't leave." My family was very prominent in the Lutheran Church in Ohio. So I said, "Okay, no problem, I'll stay." Well, that didn't suit my mother, and she left anyway and disowned me. So that whole thing was difficult. Parting with my father was difficult, and so I missed them a great deal. The living conditions were primitive at best. I mean, we lived in tents for a while. I lived, as I understand, the buildings that we lived in there at Tegu were kind of mud buildings built by the Japanese during their occupation, and the hospital, some of it was of that kind of structure, and I finagled my way into living in the library, and I had one of two toilets on the whole base, and I guarded it jealously. That was mine. But the living conditions were difficult. But that everyone had those. So.
Some people and audience will think weird because you went to Korea in 1954,
right?
But the war ended in 1953,
right?
And still, your Korean war better. So, could you explain that part to the people
right.
who will watch this interview?
Well, I mean, the official end of the war was December of 1955. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, theoretically, in fact, I was there during a war era. The shooting had stopped. The tensions were, of course, as high as they had been. So, from a strictly legalistic standpoint, I was there during the Korean War.
Yes. So the federal government extended benefits and designate officially the soldiers who worked from 1950 to 1953. No, 55.
Yes.
As designated
as Korean War veterans.
Yes, good. When did you said that you left Korea in March 1954?
Yes.
Uh-huh. And some people still say...
No, I left Korea in March 55. I got there in March of 50.
Okay.
Got there in March of 54, left in March of 55.
And some people say, the politicians even, saying that it's a forgotten war, and they say it's a conflict. What do you say to them?
I can't say that publicly. Certainly it was a war. We lost 33,000 Americans. How many South Koreans were killed? How many Koreans displaced? What an expenditure of time and effort, and there's no way that it was not a war. Forgotten, perhaps. I don't like that term. I like Colonel Weedham's term, the forgotten victory, perhaps. I've been back to Korea twice, And I can tell you assuredly that that Korea has not forgotten the way we are greeted and treated is incredible. The hospitality that is expanded to us, and I mean, it's just such a humbling experience to have done so little and to be greeted so warmly. Yeah.
American soldiers did a lot,
Yeah.
without their sacrifice and fight.
Yeah.
There's no Korea what it is like.
Right.
That's for sure.
I was on my way up to the DMZ on one of my visits, and there were some young people who were with us, and one was the daughter of a Korean of a U.S. Marine who was stationed there, and she was there for a summer visit, and she had really no idea of the history or whatever. And as we were going up there on that huge, beautiful highway, I asked her to look out the window. I said, "Now just imagine what this was 60 years ago. There were no roads, and the people who were coming up this way were, under fire and carrying everything they had on their back." And I said, here we are in luxurious bus riding up here. I said, just try to picture that. She said, "Wow, I never thought of that." But yeah, it was an awesome. My trips back there have been incredible. Yeah.
What did you study?
I stayed in the military, and I was an operating room technician for a number of years. I went to the NCO Academy, and that's when Vietnam was starting to build up. They needed training people, and so I got out of the medical field and became a TI, drill sergeant, and then a first sergeant. And I went back to Vietnam, or went to Vietnam, and I was first sergeant of a security police outfit in an air commando wing, and I had one short tour over there in a pacification group. After that, I came back to. I was at a long-range radar site out in the middle of the Mojave Desert, and the military was about to run into a doctor shortage. There were not. The doctor draft was ending, the Berry plan was ending, so they developed a physician assistant training program that would take people who had some medical background, educate them, and use them to in diagnosis and treatment of patients. And I applied for that. It was kind of a lark, but I didn't think having been out of the medical field for as long as I had, didn't think there'd be any chance. But I was they selected 100 of us from several thousand applicants, and I happened to be one of those 100 that was selected, probably as a control more than anything. I was an older guy and I'd been going to school throughout all my life, and so I had good academic credentials, and they didn't know what would happen, whether a 23-year-old non-physician would be accepted for patient care. I guess they figured that old guys like me, just because I've been on the planet so long, would be accepted. So anyway, I went through that training, graduating from the University of Nebraska with a degree, and then I've been in practice as a PA ever since. Still am. Went to
PA means?
a physician assistant, and for the past several years I've worked in psychiatry. I went to Virginia Commonwealth, got a master's there, and so been
Very impressive.
been working at it ever since.
Do you have any message to our young generation about your service in general and your service in Korea in particular?
The only message that I think I have is that I have deemed it an honor to serve my country in whatever way I've been permitted to do that. And I hope that feeling we don't lose that.
Any other things that you want to leave to this interview?
No, thank you.